name is Yvonne and welcome to Story Corner with Macmillan. And today's story is about Mr. Bear. And this is Mr. Bear here in his striped green pyjamas. And Mr. Bear lives in his house with Mrs. Bear. And along with Mr. Bear and Mrs. Bear, we have Baby Bear. And they all live in this house. But one night, Mr. Bear had a big problem. And I'm going to tell you a story about this. But first, I need your help because I can't remember the names of the rooms in the house. Can you help me? Oh, thank you. Well, the first room is where we go to sleep. And this room can have 1 or 2 beds. You might share this room with your brother and sister. And this room can have clothes and toys and books. Do you know which room it is? Yes, you're right. It's the bedroom. Well done. Now the next room is where we wash our face, wash our hands, brush our teeth, have a shower, la 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 la, and we might splash around in the bath. Do you know what room it is? No, it's not the kitchen. Yes, you're right. It's the bathroom. Well done. Now the next room is where we prepare food and we eat. Now this room can have things like a microwave, a refrigerator and an oven. And sometimes the dining room, which has the tables and chairs, can be next to this room or in the same room. Do you know what it's called? Yes, you're right. It's the kitchen. Now, the next room usually has a sofa and chairs, a television, and maybe some games and books. You might like to be in this room with your family and eat popcorn and watch a film. Can you remember its name? Well done. Yes, it's the living room. But some of you might have a special room where we put our car. And it might have a big door that opens and closes. Can you remember the name of this one? It's called a garage. Well, thank you for helping me remember the names of the rooms in the house. Well, one evening, Mr. Bear and Mrs. Bear and Baby Bear were very tired. So they decided to go to their bedrooms. Mr. Bear was all tucked up in his bed with his pillow and his blanket, and he was just about to fall asleep when he could hear "Oh no," said Mr. Bear. "I can't stand this," because Mrs. Bear was snoring very loudly. So Mr. Bear got his pillow and his blanket and he went into Baby Bear's room. And he made himself a comfy little bed, put his head on the pillow and covered himself up with the blanket, and he was all nice and warm, and he was just beginning to fall asleep when he could hear meow, meow. "Oh no," said Mr. Bear. "I can't stand this," as Baby Bear was pretending to be an aeroplane. So Mr. Bear collected his pillow and his blanket and he went downstairs. And he went into the living room. And there he thought, oh, there's a sofa. I can make a bed on the sofa. So he put his pillow and he pulled up his blanket so that he was nice and warm and comfortable. And he was just about to fall asleep. And he could hear tick-tock, tick-tock. Do you know what it was? Yes, you're right. It was the clock on the wall. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Oh no, said Mr. Bear. I can't stand this. So Mr. Bear took his pillow and his blanket. He went into the kitchen. And he put the chairs together and he made himself a very comfortable bed. He put his pillow and he pulled up his blanket. He was just beginning to feel nice and warm and fall asleep when he could hear dun 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 dun. What is that noise? Said Mr. Bear. Oh no, said Mr. Bear. I can't stand this. As the refrigerator started to hum. So Mr. Bear pulled up his blanket and tried again to fall asleep. And just as he was falling asleep, he could hear drip, drip, drip. What do you think it was? Yes, you're right. In the sink in the kitchen was a tap. Drip, drip, drip. Oh no, said Mr. Bear. I can't stand this. So he picked up his pillow and his blanket and he decided to go in the garden. And he went into the garden and made a bed under the tree. The night was dark, not too much moonlight, and he made a comfortable bed with his pillow and his blanket. He snuggled up and pulled the blanket up high, and he thought, peace, I can go to sleep. But just as Mr. Bear was going to sleep, he could hear what's that? And Mr. Bear listened, and he could hear the hedgehog going in and out of the leaves looking for food. Oh no, said Mr. Bear, I can't stand this. So Mr. Bear snuggled down and pulled up his blanket and tried to go to sleep. Just as he was about to fall asleep, he could hear meow, meow, meow. Do you know who it was? Yes, you're right. It was the cat. And the cat was sitting on the fence, talking to herself. Meow, meow, meow. Oh no, said Mr. Bear. I can't stand it. And he was getting very tired now. And then everything was silent, and Mr. Bear was falling asleep. And then, what do you think he heard? Twit-woo, 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 twit-woo. Yes, you're right. It was the owl, and the owl was at the top of the tree. "Oh no," said Mr. Bear, "I can't stand it." And he was getting very tired and a little bit grumpy now. So Mr. Bear picked up his pillow and his blanket, and he went to the car. He opened up the back of the car and put in his pillow and his blanket, and he made himself a bed. "Oh, this is lovely," said Mr. Bear. And he was all nice and warm and comfortable, and he started to fall asleep. And guess what? The sun came up. And as the sun came up, the birds began to tweet. Tweet, 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 tweet. And Mr. Bear said, "Oh no, I can't stand this." So Mr. Bear got his pillow and his blanket, and he went back to the house. He went upstairs to his bedroom, and he got back into bed with Mrs. Bear, who wasn't snoring anymore. And just as he was about to fall asleep, Mr. Bear heard a big noise. Can you guess what it was? "Oh no," said Mr. Bear. Can you guess what it was? It was the alarm clock. And Mr. Bear said, "I can't stand this. I'm so tired." So Mrs. Bear said to Mr. Bear, "Don't worry, it's time for tea and we can have breakfast." And Mr. Bear was happy, but very tired, and he enjoyed his cup of tea with Mrs. Bear and Baby Bear, and he said, "Peace at last." Now, poor Mr. Bear found it very difficult to go to sleep. I wonder if you can remember all the noises in our story. Can you remember? The first noise was meow. That's right, the aeroplane. Can you remember the next noise? Yes, you're right. Tick-tock, tick-tock. The clock. Can you remember the next one? Yes, you're right. The refrigerator in the kitchen. But there was another noise in the kitchen. Can you remember what it was? Yes, the drip, drip, drip. And do you remember when Mr. Bear went into the garden? Can you remember that animal? Yes, it was the hedgehog looking for food in the leaves. And the next animal was talking to herself on the fence. Can you remember? Louder. That's right. It was the cat saying meow? And can you remember the other animal in the tree? Very loud. Yes, you're right. Tweet-woo, tweet-woo. And then when the sun came up, all the birds started to say tweet, tweet, tweet. So poor Mr. Bear was very tired, but at least he had his cup of tea and breakfast. Thank you for joining me today at Story Corner with Macmillan.